Hello everyone and welcome. Happy Pride Month. As a lot of you know, but some of you may not, I identify as non-binary. So this is a very important topic just in general and personally. We're going to look at, does the universe have a gender? What does the mathematics have to say? And this usually brings in a lot of trolls, so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully won't get too crazy. But I am looking forward to diving into this topic with you right now. So as I said, I do myself identify as non-binary, and if you're interested in more about what that means and whatnot, I actually have a video all about it. And if you want to see me talking about myself as non-binary, you can check that out in the description of this video. One thing that I want to get across right off the bat, and this is really important because everyone gets really confused about this if this topic is new to them. There is a difference between sex, gender, and orientation. All right, so I want to make that very clear because most people conflate all of these categories into just one thing, sex, and then they say it's a binary. Either there's male and female only. So I want to emphasize, this is not the case. There is sex, gender, and orientation, and none of these categories are a binary. They all exist on a continuum or a spectrum. So to make it real easy and simple, I'll explain it right now. If you want to know more, hey, just do a search. This is in, textbooks. It's now widely taught. This is well known now. But for a quick summary, sex has to do with your biology. All right, sex has to do with your biology, chromosomes, genitalia, all these the elements that have to do with your physiology. All right, so this is biological sex. And this is not just male or female. There's male, female, intersex, and it's not a binary. All right, so even when we're talking about biology, even when we're talking about physiology, sex is not a binary. All right, very important to understand. Intersex exists. Then you go to gender. What is gender? Gender has to do with psychology, how we feel, and culture. So gender has to do with psychology and is also a social construct. So gender is how you feel. If you feel male, if you feel female, if you feel non-binary, if you're gender fluid, this has to do with what you identify as. And again, as I said, this has to do with psychology, and it's also a cultural and social construct. For example, saying that blue is for boys and pink is for girls, and men have short hair, women have long hair, men don't wear makeup, women do wear makeup. These all have to do with gender constructs, and they're completely arbitrary and socially constructed. So, if you think about today, the cultural view of makeup is, oh, well, makeup is for women and not for boys or men. But if you go back to ancient Egypt, that was not true at all. Men wore makeup all the time. And so it's important to understand that across cultures, across time, different societies, gender means and is constructed in a different way, and it varies. So gender is psychological. It's how you feel. It has to do with the inner, and it is also socially constructed. And then finally, you have orientation, and that's who you're attracted to. You can be straight, you can be gay, you can be pansexual, you can be sapiosexual, straight, homosexual, all these different orientations. And so again, you have all these different categories. You have sex, you have gender, and you have orientation. And none of these are a binary. All right, so really important to just understand those basics as we talk about this, because it's a good thing to begin with, because so many people have been taught incorrectly because they're having their education from 20 or 30 years ago. When guess what? We now understand this much better. I mean, we have always understood this, but the world is, again, catching up. But we're going to take a look at, what does the math say about all this? Because we talk about the universe here, and what I want to get across is that a lot of esoteric systems and mystical systems and religious systems put things in a gender binary. And this is very dangerous. And it can almost even seem positive at first by saying things like, oh, well, the universe is composed of both masculine and feminine energy. But you have to be really careful about saying that. Because guess what? When you say that when you say that the world is formed by masculine and feminine energy, what are you doing? This is a metaphor. It isn't literally formed by masculine and feminine energy. That's a metaphor. And people who aren't intelligent can completely misconstrue this and use this as an excuse to be sexist or homophobic and bigoted in many different ways. Because when you say something like, oh, the universe is composed of masculine and feminine energy, you are implying that, oh, male and female go together, that's the right way and how it should be. And of course, that's not the case. That's why we have all these problems with, say, Christianity, for example, when they say Adam and Eve was created, that automatically goes, oh, well, it was Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and so homosexuality must be wrong, and blah, 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 blah. So we have a huge problem where we need to get away from using these gender assignments to the nature of reality. Now, I occasionally will do this because it makes certain concepts easy to understand, but whenever I do, I always put so many different asterisks and disclaimers on there saying I don't really like to talk this way, and the only reason why I'm doing it is because it makes a certain concept easy to understand, but please know that it's not actually like this, okay? Because guess what? We do live in a world where we have to use words to communicate, and unless you're just doing pure math, sometimes certain words makes things easier to understand. But as often as I possibly can, I avoid this as much as possible. And for those of you guys who watch my videos and watch my streams, you know this, because I usually rant about it quite a lot. I don't like assigning gender to the nature of reality. But the important thing to also understand here is that in a lot of esoterica, so we're talking about the universe, and does the universe have a gender? What can the universe tell us about gender? And it's really interesting. So, we talk a lot about the one, the absolute, the collective. And in some esoterica, the one, the absolute, is actually referred to as the androgen. And, androgen having to do with androgyny. And this, means that, androgyny is about having not being masculine or feminine. It's about being neither. So, yeah, even in esoteric circles, and I'm not talking modern, I'm talking about, old systems would refer to the one as the androgen. So when we understand that, hey, look, we have different perspectives. We talk about this in Hyperionism all the time. The avatar perspective, the monadic perspective, and the absolute perspective. And when we get down to this, we know that reality is mathematical. This is a reality of frequency. This is a reality of mind. So reality is simply energy. It's simply mathematical frequency. And this mathematical energy, this mathematical frequency, it does not have a gender. So what is existence? Now, if we're talking about philosophical systems like Hegel, which I like to do, because it matches up with Hyperionism very, very well, you have, you basically have three aspects of existence. You have the idea, you have nature, and you have spirit, according to Hegel. And the idea is sort of reality in itself as a mind. Nature is how it others itself and expresses itself as something other than itself so it can experience itself. And then spirit is when it begins to realize what it is as both the essence and expression, the ground and consequence of itself. So to put that real succinctly and more in terms of Hyperionism, we are the one. We are the absolute. We are God. God, the one, the absolute. It has no gender. It has no, in fact, it has no aspects that we could assign it to rather than mathematical aspects. Now, the one then others itself into a vast multiplicity. And what it's doing is then experiencing itself in a multitude of viewpoints, in a multitude of modes of expressions. And those expressions that it takes on can take on sex, gender, and orientation. But the one itself, in itself, as fundamental reality, it has no gender. It is when it others itself into a multiplicity, when the unity goes into a diversity, that those diverse expressions of itself can take on elements of sex, gender, and orientation, because the one is experiencing itself in that multiplicity and diversity. And that's why a rainbow is a great symbol for, the LGBTQ plus community, because the one is experiencing itself in its multiplicity. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being cisgender. There's nothing wrong with being straight. We're not saying that there's anything wrong with that. That's totally fine, totally acceptable. Just, of course, be open-minded, be an ally, and be on board with understanding that you are one ray in a multitude, in a vibrancy of other rays. And so the one itself is genderless, but it expresses itself in a multiplicity, in diversity. And it can take on sex, gender, and orientation, just like we can take on clothes. But what do our clothes do? Our clothes express us, but our clothes aren't what we are. Our clothes just express what we want to express. So likewise, it's not like any of us are intrinsically a certain gender when it comes to our eternal essence. We are all simply energy and frequency. But that can take on a certain form and we can express ourselves in a certain way. So it's important to understand, okay? Remember, we have the three different perspectives. We have the avatar, monadic, and absolute. Our avatar perspective, that's us as a body. And us being incarnate in the physical form with the body, we are expressing ourselves through sex, gender, orientation. This is an expression. Now, us as an eternal monadic mind, the eternal monadic mind, the soul, has no fixed gender. Now, that's not to say that it may not prefer to express itself as a certain gender. It very much can. You as a monadic soul may prefer to express yourself as masculine, or prefer to express yourself as feminine, or prefer to express yourself as non-binary, or gender fluid, or any of these genders. But it's not fixed. It's not like, oh, well, there are some male souls, and there are some female souls, and there are some non-binary souls, and they're just that way all the time. No, that's not the case. The eternal mind, the eternal soul at base has no fixed gender, but it can prefer to express itself as one or the other. And remember, we're talking about the monadic perspective, the perspective from the eternal soul that exists across lifetimes and is eternal. Now, you as an avatar, that's of course another perspective. And of course, and then finally from the absolute perspective, the one, that's the collective, that's all of us together as one mind. Again, no fixed gender. So inherently, within reality, there is no fixed gender. And I want to, again, bring up the source formula, because when we take a look at the source formula, which is the formula for existence, right? So if we take a look at this, this is the source formula. This is the formula that defines all reality. This is, e to the ix equals cosine x plus I sine x. So reality is formed by these sinusoidal and cosine waves. This is what reality is. It's a multiplicity of minds which are constituted by these waveforms. That's what reality is. And it's not like we go, well, this is a male wave and this is a female wave. Some people may be tempted to do that, but that we want to get away from that sort of thing. When you look at reality in its essence, reality is just simply mathematical frequency that forms and expresses itself in different ways. And the fact that, we still have so much hatred these days is really despicable, because when it gets down to it, I mean, think about in the future when our technology has advanced and our evolution has advanced to such a degree, when we can change our avatars as easily as changing our clothing, when we can change our avatars as easy as changing clothes, oh, let's have a completely different body frame, let's have a completely different hair color, eye color, let's have a completely different height, let's have a completely different, just completely different genitals, completely different, being able to switch that every single day, which will happen. To think that won't happen is stupid. Of course it will. It's going to completely erase the brainwashed conception that people have in their mind that gender is associated with biological sex and physiology, and that any of that is fixed. No, it's going to be something that's completely fluid, completely dynamic, and completely changing constantly all the time. And in Hyperionism, support for the LGBTQ plus community is extremely important. Again, we are the one experiencing ourselves in our diversity. What a boring world we would live in if everything was a binary, if everything was just black and white. No, we want to live in a world of diversity, a spectrum, a garden full of, a multiplicity of colors, shapes, sizes, everything. This is the we are God experiencing ourselves. And what a boring world of experience it would be if we were limited to these such narrow-minded modes of expressing. We are here to express, learn, and grow. As God, we are God coming to the self-realization, actualization, and understanding that we are God by learning, understanding, and experiencing each other in our multiplicity. And that's really important to understand. The one, the absolute God, which is us, is a unity that diversifies itself. So it's a really silly thing to try and limit that diversity, or to stomp upon that diversity, and it's a really sad thing as well. So in Hyperionism, a big aspect of New Terra is making sure that everyone is able to flourish. Everyone is able to express themselves, as long as you are not impeding, personal growth or the growth of the collective or the growth of others. You need to have the freedom to be able to express yourself and explore reality as you so will, because that's what growth, learning, and understanding, that's what it's all about. So that plays a huge role in New Terra, in a new Hyperion community. And I also want to emphasize again, I know I said it already, but just as a reminder, that there's nothing wrong with cisgender or being straight. if you feel comfortable, identifying with the sex that you were assigned at birth, there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure that you're being an ally and that you are not impeding upon anyone else's freedom as an eternal free being of the absolute. So, it's really important to understand this, and I really want to emphasize this and to try and move away from using terms in male and female to describe the universe. All right, this is where you get, the whole yin and yang, but then they ascribe gender to it, or this happens a lot. We're reading the Gospel of Thomas right now, which is an excellent work. It's a banned book of the Bible. But what do they refer to God as? The Father. What do they refer to us as? The sons. That's not so great. All right, let's move away from that. We have advanced enough as a society to the point where, come on, it's about time that we move forward from these metaphors and start talking in ways that are more appropriate so that misunderstanding does not occur. Now, again, like I said, at times I will use this just because it's difficult not to, because we do have to use words to communicate, and it can sometimes be helpful. But remember, I will always give big disclaimers when doing so that you know that this is not something that should be taken literally. But let's really understand that, and as we create a new world, it's critical that we all have the freedom to express and explore each other and our world, and however we so will, again, as long as we aren't impeding the freedom of another or the collective, because we are God experiencing ourselves in diversity. So what do we need to do? We need to let that diversity flourish. Dave Heistman says, I self-perceive as fluid gender fluid, and they criticize me because they think that I change according to my convenience. What do you think? I say, who cares? Who cares? You don't need to justify your expression to anyone. So I'm glad that you brought that up, David. That's a great question. It doesn't matter. Fuck them. If you want to be male as fuck one day, female as fuck the next day, and nothing on the third day, who cares? You don't need to justify how you want to express yourself. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So feel free to express yourself however you so will on any day. Hell, I don't care if you change it every hour. It doesn't matter. And you don't need to justify it to anyone, because that's who you are, and that's how you express yourself. And that's beautiful. And if others don't like that, screw them. Well, not literally. Absolutely don't, actually. They shouldn't be getting any with that attitude. I want to give a shout out to our top supporters on Patreon. Timothy, White Rabbit, John, Rex, Naruda, Rufu, Roger. You guys are awesome, as well as all our top supporters and all our supporters in general. If you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. You're going to get access to our weekly secret live streams. They're awesome. It's the best way to support. Consider it. And I'll see you in the secret live, which we're doing one right after this.